My name is Hugo Gerbholz. I started milling in 1952, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I will talk about how I basically got into milling. I'm an immigrant. We immigrated from Germany in 1951, went to the farm in Alberta. That's how we paid for our trip over, and our whole family immigrated. I was the only one and four sisters in our family. I was 17 years old. I had just finished high school in Germany, and luckily, because I learned some English, so I had a few words that I could, get by with. My whole family didn't know a word of English. So it was kind of hard to start. I met my wife in Calgary, and her father was a miller meister in Germany, so there was some milling blood to start with. I started to date my wife, and I always said I met her in church, and that's I always, if anybody asks me how do you meet women and whatever, go to church. We've been married 60 years this year, and if you really want to find the right partner, go to church. We grew up that way, very religious family. But anyway, so I started dating my wife. We were both 20 years old, and her family was in British Columbia. And so she wanted to take me and meet her dad. Her mother was already dead. We didn't make the trip back. I was working for a company called McCosham's, which is a moving company. It was then that I asked for one day, extra day off on a long weekend. And my boss said, "You be back or else." And I thought, okay. So we had to drive across the mountains and into British Columbia. We missed the ferry. We had to go through a lake and had to spend the night, and I was a day late. The day I showed up in the morning, I had my pink slip, and I was fired. So now my girlfriend felt bad, and she had already found her dad a job at the mill in Calgary. So she knew it was her that caused me to lose my job. She went to the mill and asked the head miller there, her boyfriend just lost a job because of her, would he be hiring? And he says, "Can he sweep the floor?" And I says, "Yes." She says, "Yes. He's a very good sweeper." So she told me to go and see the head miller in Calgary. He looked at me and gave me a broom, and he says, "Go sweep." That's my start in milling. And with that, I developed a passion during the first few years in Calgary. And my ambition in life was, at that age, to be an architect. And amazingly, instead of an architect, I wound up to be a flour miller. But that profession really took hold of me, and I built a little model flour mill because I loved working with my hands, woodworking and all that. So that's how that started. Robin Hood in Calgary was a subsidiary of International Multi-Food here in the U.S. They had sent some people out to look at some things, and they found that little mill I built, and they thought, well, that's interesting. So they bought it from me, and I got a big $200 for that. Took me 3 months to build it, but anyways. And from that on, they asked me if I was enjoying milling. But Canada didn't have the opportunity. Would I accept a move, to move from Calgary and into the U.S.? And I said, sure. And that took like 6 months to get a visa approved. In the meantime, we had 3 kids. All my kids were born in Calgary. In fact, they're still Canadian citizens. And my folks. And then I was sent, my first transfer was to Davenport, Iowa. The interesting part about that part, I was sent over there to be in training to become a head miller. And so I was in Iowa, Davenport, Iowa, moved my family into a big old house, and there was bugs everywhere, and my wife started screaming. And so I said, okay, we'll go and build a new house, because they told me they couldn't tell me when I would move again. The interesting part is, we bought a lot, we started building, finished the house, moved in that Saturday with the help of some people from the mill. And then Monday, I got a call. Get on the plane, you're moving to Detroit, Michigan. I spent 2 nights in that brand new house, and we worked on that for months and months. And so I never got back. I was on the plane, the wife had to sell the house, and then we moved to Detroit. Well, Detroit was where I experienced or specializing in soft wheat and cake flours and all that. So I was there for a year and a half. I got a call from a small mill in Dowagiac, Michigan, and they were looking for an expert soft wheat miller. Well, in the meantime, that mill was owned by a bakery, Bluebird Baking Company. They then, the president called me and says, we're shutting down, we're selling the mill. Okay, get it ready, and I did. And ConAgra comes and sends somebody to look at the mill to buy. Well, they called me after they sent somebody, said, well, the mill is too small. We're looking for a bigger mill. But would you be interested in, they're looking for an expert soft wheat miller, specifically specializing in the cake, high ratio cake flour. And I says, well, you just found one. And so he bought me a ticket, and I came to Omaha, Nebraska. That's how my career started here in Omaha. And started with ConAgra. And I was there until 2006 that I officially retired. And now I'm still consulting for not just ConAgra, anybody that wants me. And anybody, but in the meantime, to get back to saying for the young people, I'm 80 years old now, and I've been since 2006 that I retired officially. My biggest value to the milling company and ConAgra, whoever else, because of my years of experience and the passion I developed all along these years, and all the young millers that I trained. When I came in here this week, and I live in Omaha, every time I turn around, I see young millers that I trained over these years. They're all my children, you know, and I still love this. You have to develop that passion that it takes. If you don't, you'll never make a good miller. The reason I'm saying that is because milling is not just a science, it's an art form. You got to use all senses to become a passionate, good miller. I can walk into a mill at this age, and I was running 23 flour mills for ConAgra full-time, and every mill I worked in, I developed a flow sheet. We made changes, we made improvements, we added capacity, but then it turns out to be, if you have the passion, I could walk into a mill And just by sheer listening to the sounds, I can tell what ails that mill. And that's the value that you develop. And now at my age, when you're not as young as you used to be, and you slow down somewhat, but what I add in value now to the company, you can ask some other people from ConAgra. Brad Allen was my latest boss, and I trained him right out of school as well. He's going to love to hear that. Yeah. But anyways, so, and now, you know, the latest thing, that 3 companies are joining together, and it's going to be the biggest milling company in the world, and I may still be part of that, until they finally tell me, he's too old, he forgot half of what he knew, which I don't think. I don't remember the names, I don't remember what I did last week, but give me a flour mill and I will remember for 20 years to come.